video games. We've seen them, we've heard them, and some of us may have even played them. It's definitely a fun pastime, but would you believe that video games might have some educational value to them? Or would you even believe that video games could even change the way we behave? I refer to myself as a gamer, a person that plays games often. And when I was young, I always wondered why people that play video games were categorized, like why we were different from other people. Well, obviously, we actually have different habits compared to other people. Gamers tend to concentrate a lot of the time playing video games and less time socializing. Research by sociologists, psychologists, and scientists indicate that there's a correlation between video games and behavior. In the recent decades, video games have integrated themselves into society and has made an impact in our culture and behavior. Let's start off by going through the history of video games. We live in the gaming society. In January 2007, a professor at Iowa State University, Douglas Gentile, wrote an article for Scholarship magazine that did a research on 1,178 teenagers. He found out that 8.5% of those teenagers showed signs of addiction. The signs of addiction were having the video game system within the room, not sleeping and concentrating more on what they were playing, bad eating habits, and it became such a problem that the American Medical Association came close to listing this as a mental illness, but decided that more research needed to be done on this subject. A very interesting news article written by Andrew Salmon from CNN on March 7, 2010 depicted a tragedy in Korea. A child had died because their parents neglected to feed her and they were too busy playing their video games. That comes to a shock to me. Like, I couldn't possibly believe that someone would be so distracted to video games that they would forget their own child. The irony of this story is, as they were playing their video games, they were raising a virtual child in that world. Celia Pierce, author of Communities of Play, discuss virtual worlds. These worlds are so real to some people. They're very self-sufficient. They have economies. You can develop relationships, friendships, love interests in these online video games. Some people even get married on these video games. This is World of Warcraft. I'm sure a lot of friends, or some people, it's a very popular game. In fact, video games have made such an influence on our society. The military has taken interest in video games for training youth and recruiting them. Here I have a clip. CBS did a documentary of the very same topic I'm discussing about, and I'll show you the clip right now.
In 2008, the Army closed 5 recruiting centers in the Philadelphia area and replaced them with this.
14.
the $13 million, 14,500 square foot Army Experience Center. Here, kids 13 and up can play on one of dozens of Xboxes and PC gaming stations for free.
They're simulated rifles, they are not real rifles.
Recruiters mill about.
Are you cheating?
They can't recruit kids under 17, but they're encouraged to chat with them and answer their questions.
Did you just sign up for our tournaments? Did you win? You won too. I think he's the best, man.
It's a soft sell, a 21st century approach to recruiting, modeled in part on the Apple Store.
A recent military game, Call of Duty, has sold 34 million copies as of today. And the sequel is coming out very soon, next month. Has already sold 1.6 million pre-orders. The interesting part about this game is it doesn't exactly exist yet, and people have already spent, 1.6 million people have already purchased a game that doesn't exist. Can any of you guys tell me which one of these is the real picture and which one of these is a video game?
I think the upper one is the real one.
The bottom right is real, left is,
The bottom is
yeah.
video game. Top. Video games are increasing in graphics power that, to some people, this will become real to them. A very famous incident that was reported to be related to video games was the Columbine shooting. Mike Lisa of the New York Times wrote an article on June 5th, 2007 about the shooting spree that these two high schoolers had did. And they had killed dozens of classmates. They believe the consumption of this media gave them the idea that the two to run through their school and shoot all their classmates. According to Craig Anderson, PhD, and author of Violent Video Games and Other Media, consumption equals aggression. The more we consume violent images, the more we will tend to act out in aggressive ways. Let's see. Our heart rate increases and our blood pressure also increases, and that is a normal reaction to fear, or what we are seeing, to fear and aggression that we view on television or video games. And essentially, the chemical will produce the adrenaline reaction as a defensive mechanism. Yes? Oh, it's fine. Research benefits critical. Another topic I want to cover is research benefits critical thinking. Games can teach us ways to cope with, can actually teach us ways to cope with real situations. Russell de Maria, author of Changing Ways to View Video Games, discussed that through video games, he actually named this, he gave this a nickname. It's called evolutionary learning, and it's his view of 21st century learning. He believed that video games can teach us problem-solving techniques and transferability, which is basically the building upon old techniques and advancing human growth, advancing our human development, and essentially moving society forward. This chemical study also discussed that have relationships with what we view on the screen. Neurotransmitters, acetylcholine produces reaction time. Serotonin and norepinephrine can reduce depression and stress. Video games are popular and have definitely integrated ourselves in our culture. They're very addictive and they need to be supervised. There are negative outcomes and there are positive outcomes. Children at a young age should be supervised because they are the most influential age. So, and they should be watched and video games should be treated similar to alcohol and drugs. The context of these games that we present to our children is our own responsibility, and it's our individual responsibility. Thank you.